sits on 8.2 acres. So it basically has to be twice as big as Wrigley Field in order to have a middle school in Illinois. It's even worse this is Arkansas here, which they actually upgraded while Clinton was governor there, who, I'm a Democrat, I actually admire Clinton, but it's kind of ridiculous. He was trying to upgrade Arkansas. He went to Yale and all that, so he had to upgrade Arkansas. So they had a 30-acre minimum for high schools while he was governor and went to 35 to upgrade it some more. But the absurdity of it is just incredible. So one of the things that, when we had this confrontation with Green Building about the HSBC Bank getting this award, we said, well, we need to change the rules. And you need to think more comprehensively before you give an award. So maybe they should have gotten, instead of a gold award, they should have gotten a bronze award or something, but not a gold award when they made all their employees travel. So we did something with them called LEAD ND in their rating system. And their rating system has all kinds of challenges, so I'm not endorsing it tonight, but the one part of it that we had an influence on was LEAD neighborhood development. And what that said was that you had to consider standards that actually added value and actually improved energy performance, including things that had to do with settlement pattern. Or in this case, we flipped the standards, that we lowered them and flipped them and made them maximums instead of minimums. So the maximum you could have for an elementary school is 5 acres, the maximum for a middle school 10, maximum for high school 15 instead of 30. And now that's in their rules, and some school districts are starting to adopt that. I mean, you save a lot of money on land. You don't have to have more land than you need. And also you create a school that kids could actually walk to. But this is what's usually done. This is the typical kind of school that's built way out in the middle of nowhere. The land is cheaper than it is in the middle, but in the long run, it's not cheaper to do this to the kids. Another thing about this is the standards for playgrounds. And part of this is caused by tort suits. Everything has to be perfect. But this is Zablocki Grade School in Milwaukee. And you see the dandelions. The dandelions on the playground mean that the kids aren't being poisoned with toxic chemicals to kill the dandelions. So if you see dandelions on the playground, that means it's safe for you, probably safe for your kids to play on it. And then the other thing is, wood chips I think are reasonable. But, all these expensive things that they put on around the playground, and then the kids, they never learn what it means to have a scuffed elbow. I mean, not everybody has to be completely safe at all times. But this is what most school grounds look like. This is the Audubon Middle School, named after James Audubon. And so the parking specialist won out, and the playground, it's all set up for what? I don't know, maybe kickball. Small playgrounds work really well. And Milwaukee committed property tax suicide with playground widenings back in the 60s and 70s. One of the reasons I originally ran for office was they kept doing that. They tear all the houses down on one end of the block and to make the playground bigger. And then who was going to pay for that stuff? And the widening of the streets, it's another property tax suicide. When I became mayor, the public works director came in and showed me his budget. He wanted $58 million for new right turn lanes, street widenings, to clean up all the hot spots. But it involved millions and millions of dollars of demolition, which he didn't even put that in his budget. He was relying on some other agency to pay for all the demolition. And I asked him a question. I said, well, are you planning on drawing your pension after you retire from the city of Milwaukee? He said, well, of course I am. I said, well, then why do you want to tear down the tax base that pays your pension? What's that about? He said, well, our study shows that it'll be traffic level traffic level D instead of C, and therefore it's a hot spot and we must do this. And, ultimately, he had he listened. I mean, it was really great. I was mayor and he worked for me, so he listened. But anyway, we stopped doing that. We stopped tearing down the city and its tax base. All right, now I'm going to switch a little bit. If this jumps around a little bit, it's because I'm trying to cover a whole bunch of material at one time, and I think you'll actually be interested in this. This is Walter Gropius, and he was one of the founders of the modernist movement. Le Corbusier was the other big founder of the modernist movement. And the modernist movement for architecture really came up after World War II, World War I. A little bit before World War I, but these guys really got serious after World War I because they hated that war, and with good reason. It was a war where all these big empires clashed. It could have easily been avoided. It wasn't like a good guy, bad guy kind of war like World War II was, where my dad served and was on the Bataan Death March, and the people that made him almost starve to death, they were bad, I'm sorry. But in World War I, you had the German Empire, the French Empire, and they had this, it was the first really mechanized killing war, millions of people killed, and the architecture of the empires was this grand Beaux-Arts architecture, big boulevards where the armies could march, with rows of trees, and the Haussmann plan in Paris, and all these, Vienna, and all these places. And these guys didn't like that, and so they wanted a new world, a better architecture. And so they started making changes and basically prohibiting the kind of architecture. And Gropius was significant because he was the head of the Bauhaus movement in Germany, and which produced a lot of great things, including beautiful furniture, all that kind of stuff. But they also were big advocates for making the city less dense and spreading things out. And they also were against imperial design so much that when Gropius left Germany, and he left Germany because he wasn't a Nazi, and he, to his credit, left Germany. He went to Harvard, and they very quickly made him head of the Harvard Design Program, which is like the most elite architecture school. And he developed a new curriculum. And he completely changed the curriculum, and he took out a lot of what he considered imperial architectural forms, including the simple thing of terminating the vista with a monumental building. So you have a church or a city hall, or in Madison, the state capitol, looking up State Street. Or in this case, Port Washington, along Lake Michigan. Port Washington, that's the St. Mary's Roman Catholic Church, and then the street on each side, the ordinary street, paying homage to the monumental building. He didn't like that. He said it shouldn't be done again. He put that in the Harvard curriculum. No more terminated vistas, or if you do terminate the vista, it shouldn't be directly in line with the center of the street. It should be abstract. It almost sounds weird, but to them it made sense. And it made sense to Walt Disney to do just the opposite. Now, since all this curriculum spread from Harvard all over the country to all the design schools except maybe Notre Dame and a few others, and so if you look around, there's no terminated vistas. You don't see them. They're not built anymore. Your city hall in La Crosse, which is really stark, but it's not built to terminate a vista. Your old courthouse probably did, like the state capitol did. But he said, don't do that anymore. But Disney thought it was a good idea. So if you go to Orlando or Anaheim, you can see terminated vistas, and people love it. The Main Street with the ordinary buildings honoring the monumental building. Or in Italy, in the hill country in Italy, this is near Alba, and you have the campanile or bell tower of the church with the ordinary buildings on each side, creates this wonderful place. Or the Chicago Board of Trade, which was built in 1925, so it wasn't affected by Gropius's attitudes